Hello, my name is Vivian Xavier, and this is part of our masterclass for the Gandhara Independent Film Festival. Uh, the festival was basically initiated because we felt the need to promote quality storytelling, and especially in a country like Pakistan, where access to something like that is rather restricted. But festivals are more than just watching movies; they're about talking as well and discussing and debating. And today, sorry, we are going to be talking to Laura Aimone. Um, I hope I pronounce her name correctly, but Laura is a filmmaker. She worked at different festivals, and she has studied film history as well. So today she's going to talk about her journey, and not just from studying film history and languages, but to actually making them and everything that she's done in between. And you guys are going to learn quite a bit. So without further ado, I'm going to add her, and we're going to be talking to Laura. Hello, Laura.
Hello. Hi, everyone.
How are you?
Very well. Thank you very much. I'm very happy. Thank you.
We are very happy to have you here. So, Laura, before we go further, why don't you tell us a little bit about yourself and how you got started in film?
Absolutely. It's a very passionate journey that I went through. And so basically, as you mentioned, I am foreign languages and literatures at uni. And then I've always had a very strong interest in film. So I started film history and took all the optional exams in film history. However, once I graduated, I didn't know exactly what kind of job I wanted. I mean, I knew the characteristics, but I didn't know how to call it. So I knew I wanted to be in touch with culture, to do something with culture, with international people, to speak languages, and to contribute to creating something. So I basically started by trying. At first, I worked in international holiday resorts in the Dominican Republic and in Egypt. Then I moved to the States to teach Italian. But neither of these two options were exactly what I was looking for, because in the first case, the cultural side was missing. In the second case, it was too cultural and too academic for me. And it was only when I came back to Italy, wondering where I should go, that I got a proposal from a friend who was looking for someone who could speak English to work for a film festival. And that was just like when you enter a house and you say, oh yeah, I want to live here. It felt from the very beginning. And I've never left that field. It's been 15 years. And of course, it's been a road with a lot of bumps on the way, like all roads. But because it felt so right from the beginning, I just never abandoned it, basically. And so I moved around this field, always challenging myself, because after doing something for a while, I don't get bored because I still do it with a lot of enthusiasm, but I like to see, okay, let's see what else I can add to that. So at the very beginning, I started by working in hospitality and booking flights for filmmakers and guests. Then I specialized in the protocol of red carpets. So I started my own company, and I started basically freelancing for different festivals that had major red carpets, like the Berlinale, the Venice Film Festival, where I'm currently still working for almost 2 months every year. I've been there for 15 years. And the Edinburgh Film Festival, Ajyal, Tribeca and Ajyal later in Doha.
Okay.
And Festival of Macao in China. So in all these festivals, I basically look after talents, mainly directors and actors, producers. And I explain them how the red carpet works, because there are so many different rules. When you red carpet, it seems everything is just casually happening, but it's there's a lot of work to make it look that fluid, and so it's a lot of backstage, and it's very passionate because every festival has its own rules, and it's nice to learn them and to make other people respect them without being intrusive. So it's a very you're always on the edge. It's a very challenging and endorphinic word, I would say. World, yes, work. So from there, because I was always exposed to so many interesting people and so many interesting films that a lot of times, unfortunately, don't make it to the big screen, to the big screen, and don't enter distribution, I felt like just showing some of these little gems that I was finding around festivals to people in my country. And so I started my own film event 3 years ago. That's called Shocking Pink Endorphins. So again, endorphins. Endorphins are very important for me. I think that you have to do something that makes you produce endorphins. Otherwise, there's no point in doing it. So I basically work mainly with independent film festival, independent filmmakers, showing their little films, little big films, I would say, in Italy. It's this year is going to be the 3rd edition. Then the event is dedicated mainly to women and sports, because I used to be a volleyball player, and sports has always been very important. Yeah, I just united two of my passions. And the last step of this journey was last year, where I, inspired by all the beautiful people I'm always surrounded by, I decided to try and make my own film. Not coming from film school, but having an idea that I really wanted to make it happen, basically. And again, it was a very, very interesting and challenging 1 year almost a journey. And the film was released last July, and it's around for a year now. It's doing a very nice festival around. It's been to several festivals already in Italy and abroad, and we can't wait to take it further. So this was just an overview. Then I'm happy to go into more details. But I mean, when people ask what do you do, it's always a tough question, because my career has many different facets and different aspects. So even my grandma, when she was still alive, could not really get what I was doing. So to her, I would just organize events. But yeah, I gave you a little bit more answer.
Well, no, thank you. That's that is quite a journey. So it answer as well. But I'm really curious to know what festival that was, that got you interested, and were you attached to it as a translator? Because I know that a lot of festivals require translators, and because you have so many audience members and so many filmmakers, they don't always speak the same language.
Mm-hmm. And you mean
linguistically, they don't speak the same language.
Yeah.
The first festival that you that got you hooked, really.
So the very first one where I started is a festival that does not exist anymore, unfortunately. It was called the Women's Film Festival in Torino, which is the region it's the main city in the region where I was born, Piemonte. They really needed someone in hospitality who could speak English, and the director was having a lot of troubles, because as Italians, sometimes we have quite some problems with English, unfortunately. And so, but because I majored in foreign languages, and because languages have always been so important to me, it's so important to communicate. So I've always loved English, and that's how I got into it. Yeah, but I was not
Oh, okay.
I mean, I did it.
Oh, okay, okay.
I did it on stage also because I was introducing filmmakers and translating back and forth between English, but just because it was a small festival. So when the official translator was not showing up, I filled in, and I was just doing that myself. But the job was not as a translator itself.
Oh, okay, okay. Wow, so that's you were wearing quite a few hats over there. I'm guessing. Well, that's so. The the journey that you're talking about, it has a lot of passion there, and I believe that that's probably what has taken you from from starting in hospitality to actually making your thing, and sort of being on the other side of things now. How does that feel?
Yeah, I've always known I wanted a job that would allow me to use my passion. You spend a lot of time working in your life, and if you don't do it to the utmost, then I think it's a little bit of a waste of time. And also, when you work passionately, you show it in a way or the other. I mean, even not just in person, with what you do, people feel it immediately. I know that there are not so many people who are so lucky to have a job that is also their passion, because it doesn't work in basically. But that was my aim. So I've always had it very clear in my mind, and always walked towards it. And I also like, because of the person I am, to have more than just one shade, because I think in a way they're all complementary. Because I really enjoy looking after people, but at the same time I like to create my own things, and it doesn't necessarily mean that the two can't go hand in hand. They can be complementary, and you can keep both of them, or even add more. Like, for example, I did last year making a film, and my theory has always been, if I don't try, I'll never know if it's going to happen or not. I mean, when I started this idea, crazy idea of making a film, my friends were, but you don't know how to. And I know, but I've spent 15 years watching movies. My ideas are very clear. I don't necessarily need to know which kind of lens you need to shoot a specific scene. As long as I know the scene I want, then I'll have a crew that will help me make that happen. So I don't think, as long as you know your limits and you know what you're missing, and you know how to fill that in, I think that you can make it. And then, if not, because sometimes it doesn't work, but at least you've tried, and you won't have regrets and think, oh man, if I had tried it. No, I tried, and it was a great success. Or I tried it and I realized it was not for me. Maybe being on set was my call, but actually I loved it, so I can't wait to be on set again.
So has that the fact that you try no matter what, has that been your inspiration, or as to put it from a line from your film itself, has that been your part to just keep crying no matter what?
Yeah, definitely. For me, that's a very important inspiration, and also an inspiration that I mean, by being exposed to so many filmmakers, I listened to their stories so many times, and most of them were hard journeys, difficult journeys, not journeys that came because they were taken for granted. And that also motivated me. I said, wow, if that person managed to do it under those conditions, why shouldn't I? If I try my best. And in general, and this is why I decided to talk about this topic also in my film, A lot of times I met also people that were, yeah, but I'd love to have your kind of life. But yeah, you started traveling when you were very young. I didn't have that chance. I mean, a lot of times they were making excuses for themselves. It's true. It's when you have to start something, it always looks like an insurmountable mountain, bigger than yourself. But if you never try and if you never take the first step, the mountain will be always high. So if you think about the what if all the time, that will prevent you from taking steps and moving forward. And unfortunately, a lot of people that I met were exactly like that. Yeah, I would love to do that, but what if the car breaks? What if I don't get the money? Try, then you will find a way. And if not, at least you've tried. So in my film, the main character is exactly a person like that. I called him Lorenzo because it's an Italian name that I like very much. But to me, Lorenzo stands for all those people who are living a quiet life, but quiet meaning because they constructed a sort of cage where they feel protected, a comfort zone. They're not happy, they realize that, but they don't have the guts to try and break the cage. So I'm trying to see if my main character manages to do that. And to explain this, I used a metaphor of a sort of fight that I'm very proud of, because in my hometown, we've always celebrated Carnival with this crazy fight, which is the orange battle. It's like the tomatina in Spain, but we don't throw tomatoes, oranges. It's one of the most important carnivals we have in Italy, besides Venice and the one of Venice and the one in Viareggio. And it's just crazy. And I happened to be born during the fight. So my mom...
okay, wow.
Yeah, it was a convenient moment to come to life, seriously, because my mom had to reach the hospital and there were, of course, the streets are blocked off and there are oranges flying everywhere. And there I was, hello, here I am. So I've always had a very special attachment to this event, and that's why I wanted to portray it. So basically, in my film, I'm trying to see if my main character can find the courage to throw the first orange in the carnival of his own life. And the title of the film is The Carnival of Life. This is how the idea started. I came up with this idea. I wanted to do something about Carnival. And I didn't want a documentary because there are already quite some, but there was no proper work of fiction. And but because it's such a multi-layered event with a lot of historic references, I was afraid that people who are maybe not familiar with Carnival at all, because in some parts of the world, Carnival is not as popular as it is in my culture, I was afraid that they would get lost. So I decided to use it as a metaphor by telling the story of someone who could be really anyone. I think that at all attitudes in the world, there are Lorenzos. And my hope was that by telling a common story, people would understand the Carnival better, or at least get more intrigued by it and then feel like researching a little bit more by themselves. Because the film is full of details. Details are very important to me. They matter a lot. In work, when you start something, I'm a very detailed-oriented person. And so, of course, my film was also had to be full of details. I know it's challenging. Some people get some of them. Some people get them all. Some people find new ones. And I think that's the beauty.
Well, yeah, I mean, that's... that is definitely one of the beauties of just any works of art, but cinema itself, because you can watch it on so many levels, and every time you watch it, depending on what you're going through, you can be open to a different version or a different perspective of what the filmmaker was saying, and then you obviously form your own at that time as well.
That's true. That's true. And
so
this part of meeting audiences. When it was still possible to travel around with the film, I attended festivals in countries that were very different than mine, in Armenia and in Russia. And it was so interesting to answer Q&As because people would notice something that to me was just a normal detail, or just something that I had not even focused my attention on, but to them it really had a different meaning. And so the beauty of the world we work in, the beauty of cinema, is that it's really a teamwork. When apart from when you conceive the idea, well, of course, also that could be conceived in more than one person, but generally the idea comes from one. But then making it happen, bringing it to life, is really could not be possible without everyone around you. And even after the film is ready, people still contribute to finding new meanings and new layers. So that's always so fascinating. It's like a
It
kaleidoscope
is.
on how you look at it. It's a beautiful new picture.
Exactly. Coming back to the festivals and your inspiration, is there anything that has stuck with you, from meeting all these directors and filmmakers over the past 15 years, something that has stuck with you, possibly that you hold dear, like a piece of advice as you go forward, into this new world of directing movies?
Um, so as a person working for a festival, I've always really, really valued working with people who are humble and who are passionate about what they do, are willing to share what they do, but who also notice what you do and are thankful for that. Because I think that as festival organizers, a lot of times we are, a lot of our roles are in the shade. In a festival, the director, the programmer are on the spotlight, but all the others, I mean, it's just such a complicated chain. And so when directors say thank you, even to everyone, even to the driver. That's an important part of the festival. Without the driver, there wouldn't be no pickups or no trips to the red carpet. And so that's always been very important to me. So if I had to talk to a new filmmaker, a budding filmmaker, or someone just starting this career, dream big, but always be thankful to others, and also just remain humble, no matter how important you are. Even after 3 golden lions and 2 golden bears, it's just the beauty of film festivals is that you can reach out to people, and people become more accessible. But if they raise barriers and they start showing off just because they have a cool job, then this beauty is broken. And as a filmmaker, I think just I would say throw the first orange, and first one, keep throwing others. It's a beautiful journey you are getting on, and I don't think, unless someone really is born with that drive of becoming the new Scorsese or whomever. But you can also just do something in your small world and show it around. Not everyone is born to become a Scorsese, but still, even small works matter. As independent filmmakers, sometimes you discover such beautiful works that it's really, really a pity that they don't get distributed. It doesn't matter that it doesn't mean that they are not important. It's just the way sometimes this business goes. And the work of film festivals that try to promote the work of these, I would say, maybe lesser known or more hidden filmmakers is impressive, because it's important to give them visibility, and it's important that they make themselves visible and they create bonds. Because this is also my third advice. I would say always make sure that people know what you're doing and what you want to do, where you want to go. Not because you're showing off again and you say, oh, wow, I'm so cool, I'm a filmmaker. Oh, I was on the jury of that festival. No, not because of that. But because maybe you would find someone who was really looking for a jury member. Or someone who's interested in sports. And then new collaborations just happen by magic. And yeah, magic is another important word in our field. I've seen magic all around, but you have to be open to it. So if you just sit in your corner and you don't communicate to others, you don't make bridges, it's very difficult. It's very difficult. Even during lockdown, one of the things I missed the most professionally was creating these personal bonds at film festivals, because of course it's great to have digital events in terms of visibility. Someone from the North Pole can even watch your film and he would never come to a small festival at the opposite side of the world. But online, everything is possible. However, you miss that warmth that only people can communicate. But no matter what, I try to interact with filmmakers also digitally. My film was selected in a few festivals, and I watched the programs, of course, the whole program of the festival. And I reached out to those directors whose films I had particularly enjoyed. And we started chit-chatting. I never random reach out to someone to chit-chat on the internet or on Facebook. But in this case, it's our magic world. Okay, we're not having an aperitif and networking. No problem. I'll do it online. So always do that. I think it's really important, especially as independent filmmakers, because I think the best collaborations are the ones that happen by magic, by chance, when you're maybe watching sunset after a screening and someone casually happens to materialize next to you and you start a random conversation that will then eventually lead to a great project 2 years later. So you never know who's around the corner.
Exactly. Yeah. Exactly. I liked your what you said about being humble and sort of just being open to new possibilities. Because and also the filmmakers that we don't normally see every day or hear about, it doesn't mean that they're not important or they don't have something to contribute. So for all the independent filmmakers out there, just because you're not being spoken of doesn't mean that you're not someone who can contribute to the wider cultural dialogue that's happening. And just just think about it this way: that a diamond is a diamond, whether it's in a mine or whether it's in a jewelry store.
That's true.
It's still a diamond. So you should always think of it this way. So I never knew that there was a particular protocol of the red carpet. Would you be open to talking a little bit about that, like what the differences are? Because you've worked in festivals all over with different cultural practices, the Middle East, Europe, Asia. So how do those differ? And, is there something that filmmakers should be cognizant about?
I would say probably the best person to trust is really the talent handler, the person that looks after you in a festival. So before doing something that's maybe not really proper, always ask, because people who do my job are always very willing to open the gates of a festival for you and explain you what these little rules are. I would say that, certainly some things are cultural, at least speaking from my experience. I discovered that some things are related to culture, and others are just related to the specific layout of a festival. Or the specific also sponsor necessities, because sometimes, even if it's just 200 meters, you cannot walk to the red carpet because you have a sponsor that's a car company, and you have to get to the red carpet by car because they have to take a picture of you getting off the car with the logo of the sponsor. So it's not always a matter of practicality sometimes. There are certain festivals that have stricter rules, of course, and those are a little bit more tricky because not always these rules correspond to the requests of the filmmaker and the entourage of a film. And so that's when our role kicks in and gets very important, because you have to liaise and make sure that the festival is happy, guest is happy. For example, that could be a specific number of cars. We can't give you more than 5, 6, 7 cars, but everyone wants to be on a car because it means you are an important person, at least normally in the filmmaker's mentality. Or also there is a very strict protocol sometimes in get off the car and you walk the car, because there are steps that you have to go through, and it's very important to respect them. So, for example, this is again, it depends on the layout of the carpet, but normally the first stop is for the pictures with the photographers solo, then all together. Then there is a little interview or the autographs, and then the most important part, meeting the director, for example. And you cannot just do as you please when you are there, because otherwise you mess things up. And if there is the ceremony is being broadcasted, or even out of respect for the festival director, you have to follow all these steps. A thing that I like to tell that really impressed me the first time I saw it was in Macao, my first year working there. Because before the festival starts, the day before, they have a ceremony just with the staff members, and of course the festival directors. I mean, everyone involved in the festival organization, to thank the gods and get their blessings. And to me, that was so beautiful and so Asian in a way, because in Europe I had never found anything like that. And also, normally the day before a festival starts, you're all in front of the computer doing this, going crazy, people screaming and yelling. And there, it was so nice that they took a break. And there for 1 hour, everyone was on the red carpet. They had set up an altar. And then the ceremony was all in Chinese, but luckily some of my colleagues translated the most important parts. And there was even a master of ceremony who was a sort of priest that would ask for blessing for the guests to be in good health, for the planes to arrive on time, for the weather to be nice so that they could have a nice red carpet. And that was so beautiful. I literally was mesmerized. And then there was a dragon dance, because dragons are important to their culture and they're everywhere. And only at the end, everyone had to eat these kind of special pig that they had cooked, because it was a sign that then, a good luck wish. So we had we spent this beautiful hour without thinking about work. We were fed, and afterwards, really, it felt like almost a holiday. And we went back to the office like super motivated and even more willing to be part of this whole ceremony. And so that was amazing. And also then their red carpet, when they started, they're very grand, super flashy, with a lot of interviews, a lot of lights, a lot of glitters, but just taken to the utmost. And that was also interesting for me to notice. It's very important for them also to ask for feedbacks about the city, which is something that I had never found anywhere else. I mean, normally interviews on the red carpet are all about the film, but to them it's very important that you tell them how you find their city. In Doha was also an amazing experience. First of all, it was without any doubt the most international team I've ever been part of. I had literally colleagues coming from all over the world. That's true of the Gulf in general, but this experience was incredible. And even in my team, in the team I was leading, there were people that were so international. And on the red carpet, for example, speaking of different cultures, it was very important to dress decently. So as a person working with talents, that was a tricky part for me, because a lot of people coming from Europe or from the States, especially women, are used to wearing these evening dresses on the red carpet that a lot of times are very revealing. And that was a problem there. And even as staff members, unfortunately, we don't have sponsors for dresses, so I have my own private collection of dresses that I use on the red carpet. And working mainly in festivals in Europe, I had a certain kind of dresses that I could not use in Doha, so I had to buy a new set of dresses. And so yeah, it's super interesting that every festival has its own peculiarities, and it's sometimes hard to navigate through them, especially when as a filmmaker you switch from one country to the other. So always pay attention to what your talent handler tell you, and you cannot go wrong. Hopefully.
Wow, there you go. But it's really interesting that, you know, as filmmakers, we come across so many different cultures and so many different kinds of people. I actually have a couple of friends I met last year who, who've told me the same story, where before they start a movie in Asia, especially in Vietnam, they have a shaman or a priest come in and pray, and uh, he's very suspicious of the whole thing, even though he's Vietnamese. But it's something that they all stick to, and it's you see that in India, you see that in Pakistan, where I'm from, where people will say a prayer before you embark on the film production. But it's interesting how you come across all these different cultures, and on a minute level they might be different, but as a universal whole, they can have some thread that is common between them as well. And I think that's that's a trademark of movies as well. That they might be specific for different cultures, but if you go deeper and you look at deeper meanings, it still works on a universal level. Whether it's the story or how they're made. So I think that's very interesting about just cinema in general as well.
Yeah, definitely. It's really a journey through cultures all the time. By watching a movie, by being exposed to people who make it, and yeah, it's like traveling constantly, which is
exactly.
I like one of the reasons why I like it so much, because traveling is really part of my life.
So, Laura, I wanted to ask you that you've studied film history, and how is that sort of translated into your film career, or your career as a as a person who works in film festivals? How has that helped you, and is there one thing that you've taken from that education that you always look back at when you're sort of because you've directed a film now? So how is that translated for you?
Yeah, it's a very interesting question. As I said, I've always had this interest, and so I made sure that every time at uni there was a course available about film history, I would take it no matter what. So sometimes I was also adventurous. As far as it was cinema, let's try. I remember a specific course about Western movies. I thought it would not really be my genre. It turned out to be a passion. This is certainly something that I brought with me in my future career. Never dismiss a movie just by reading the synopsis and say, no, that's not for me. Because there might be surprises, or you might find a new interest. And one of the reasons why I love being on juries, and I've been on quite a few, because if there's the chance to, I love doing it, is because then you are challenged to see a whole lot of different films that you might not necessarily choose yourself. Because I think as a viewer, sometimes we get a little bit predictable. You know what your tastes are, you opt for those. But no. And I learned this at uni. Try to be surprised by what you watch. And then in terms of new discoveries, when I was on my study year abroad, I was in Denmark, and I took a series of specific courses about the Danish film history. And I discovered a whole new world. I mean, especially when I was at uni, unless you went to a film festival, it was difficult to see Danish films just as part of our program in a cinema. And that's when I started being really intrigued by lesser known cinematographies and just lesser known countries on the big screen. So when I'm at a festival, if I have to choose between a film from the States and one from Cambodia, I always go for the one from Cambodia, because the one from the States I might find later on in a movie theater, or if not, it's more accessible. But those little gems by such remote, for my perspective, of course, depending on, but lesser known cinematographic countries, are always incredible discoveries. I remember watching a film from Kazakhstan. Whew, I was blown away. It was so beautiful, so delicate. And I mean, when do I get the chance to watch these kind of films if I'm not at a film festival? So programmer, I always try, and that's exactly what I do in my film event. I always try to bring films from unusual provinces, unusual areas, because very likely you will discover something. Then you might decide that it's not for you, or never again, or then maybe you'll start researching and you'll be willing to watch more and more. So I learned this as well by studying film history. These two things, I would say, were the ones that I brought with me in my career, which could also be summarized in a word: be open.
There you go. It's really interesting that you've spoken about being able to see movies from all over the world, and this idea of accessibility is something that has intrigued me over the last 2 years at least. Because as filmmakers, and especially independent filmmakers, where we just want to make movies, I don't think a lot of filmmakers think about the distribution aspect of things as well, and the accessibility of it. And that becomes really important, because you can make a movie, but if people aren't watching it, then what do you do with that film? But I completely agree with you that there's so many movies out there that we don't really get to see other than at a film festival, and that speaks volumes for the importance of film festivals, but also the accessibility and being open to new films, because like we spoke about earlier, in terms of the culture, you get to see a different side of how those people view the world and their perspective of the world, and that becomes so important when you're understanding or when you want to understand a different culture. It's really how they tell their stories is one way of of looking at that side of the world, and therein, that lies, that speaks about the importance of cinema, as a cultural bridge. I don't know if you agree with that.
Yeah, absolutely, absolutely. It's an immersion really in another culture, and a lot of times, and these little gems come from really something that's deep inside. So it's natural that they talk about emotions and things that are relevant to that specific culture. So by watching a film, it's like diving really into a culture. Not only, it's also diving into a landscape, into into a place that you might not have had on your travel wish list, but after the film you might add it to. There is a beautiful festival where I was a jury member last year, and this year my film was there in Italy. I'm so proud of this festival in my country. It's called the Ischia Film Festival, and they have as their purpose that of showing films that highlight a certain aspect of a location. It could be also the lack of a specific aspect also, but mostly it's about films that show a beautiful place or a challenging place, something, an interesting place. And the festival itself takes place in a castle overlooking the sea. It's so beautiful. I mean, and all the screenings are outside in the old garden of the prison, of the castle, under the lighthouse. It's just wow.
Wow.
So
Yeah.
these things are really nice, even as festival organizers. I think that when you can find something so specific, it's nice because you differentiate yourself from other festivals, and you give more options. So it's always very important to me to set your goals out front and very clearly. So as filmmakers, you know where to go. So and where to send your film to, and when you do it professionally, then it's a great business card. And just from, but also from the beginning, find your own identity. That's important.
Identity. Yeah. So you've spoken about being a jury member on quite a few festivals. What is your process in terms of selecting a film, and what advice can you give to independent filmmakers, especially you know filmmakers from Pakistan, or Asia, or whatever, where sometimes sending films to festival becomes a bit of a burden financially.
Yeah.
But what advice can you give them?
Well, the first thing, research well, because not all the festivals are meant for your film. That doesn't mean that your film is not good. It just means that you're talking to different languages. So before investing money into sending your film to a place where chances that it won't get selected are very high, just you'd better not send it and save that money to really send it to a festival that where your film goes right to the goal, right to the topic of the festival. Then maybe it might still not get selected, but at least you know you're in the right place. So make a selection, make a careful selection. As a jury member, the first time I thought it would be so easy because I love watching movies, and so it kind of felt like the dream job, just sitting there and watching as many movies as possible and discussing with other people who are also passionate about films, and come up with a final result. But man, I was so wrong. It's very extremely difficult. First of all, because a lot of times films are very different from each other, although they're part of the same category. So it becomes hard to pick up one because it's difficult to compare them. And Secondly, because you are with other people that have different tastes and a different angle to look at movies. The most successful juries I was on were actually the ones that were made by people from the industry, but coming from different areas. So a music composer, a director, a film director, and a technician, because they would all notice different aspects, and then the discussions would be more interesting. But still, they're different people. They don't have your tastes. They don't have your style of watching something. So discussions can be hard, and sometimes you really have to negotiate. And maybe your favorite is not the one that gets the prize because you step down to the second favorite of everyone. Maybe sometimes, but sometimes it's clear everyone that that's the winner. It really depends. What I personally look for in a movie when I'm on a jury is probably the first thing is the story. The story should be compelling in some ways. And it should not be always the same story. I think that especially lately, in the last years I was on juries, there were so many films all the same topics. Especially, I'm talking about Europe specifically. For example, the problem in Italy of immigrants in the southern part of Italy, especially, is very relevant at the moment. But it's not because it's so relevant that I want to watch 10 films about this topic that are all pretty much saying the same thing. If you still want to make a movie about this and try to be original, just approach the subject from a completely different perspective. Take me aback. Do something that makes me say, "Oh, wow, that's a completely new take on the topic." That's what I look for when I'm on a jury. And then, of course, that should be complemented by nice photography, by technical qualities, all the rest. But to me, by good music, but good acting, of course. But to me, I mean, if you enter a film festival, all those things are there already. I mean, that's the basis to enter. Then it could be exceptionally good, but to me, really, the story. Find interesting stories to tell, and also that come from the heart, because the one who's watching can perceive that, no matter at what level they are. I'll just tell a little story that's related to this in a way. In my film, I really wanted to work with a specific Italian actor. He's in his 70s. He's a big icon in my country. I had never worked with him, but when I wrote one of the roles in my film, I had him in mind because I've watched a lot of his movies and theater plays, and I really wanted him. And he doesn't know me at all. I haven't made any previous movies. How am I going to do that? But then I managed to find his email, and I wrote him. I wrote him as if I were writing my best friend, basically. Of course, respectful, but
Yeah.
I mean, yeah, it was a formal email, but it came from my heart. And I simply explained him why I wanted him for that specific role, and I sent him the script. He called me on my cell phone the following day. I was flabbergasted. I couldn't believe it. He said, I read your script. I really loved it. For one specific reason, it comes from your heart. I could feel how important and how compelling it was for you to tell this story in that specific moment. And when the heart is calling, he told me, I cannot say no. So consider me part of your project. And of course, I don't want to be paid. And because we had zero money on the budget at that point. I mean, having him on board, I think the total amount of money that I managed to raise for my film would not have been enough to pay just that day of with him.
Yeah.
And he said, and it would have been also a little bit awkward to ask him and to talk about money. But he said that up front. I don't want to be paid. Life gave a lot to me, and I want to give somehow something back. So for projects that I feel come from the heart. So I was so moved. And that's also what I mean by being humble. He's really an icon in my country. He called me Mrs. No One on my cell phone. So I was, whoa. And to me, those are really the artists and the professionals that matter, because they don't lose their mind. They keep their heart.
Yeah. Well, there you go. It's all about trying and seeing if things will work. And they obviously work for you and for your film, and that's quite a story.
Yeah. It seems.
So, I'm sorry. Can you say that again?
It still gives me goosebumps when I tell it, because you're talking about feelings, and when we talk about feelings, you can't get wrong.
Yeah, it's that's the magic of cinema, right? It's
Indeed.
You might use words, you might use good photography or whatever, but when it touches you on a deeper level, it really transcends all of that.
Correct. Yeah.
So coming back to your movie, and there's something that really caught my eye, and again, we were talking about the festival because it's a huge thing. How did you manage to get around that? Because when you're making films, you are dealing with permissions, you're dealing with the sort of the amount of people that you have to have on set. You're dealing with just different ways of shooting something so huge, and obviously, like you mentioned, you didn't have the budget. So how did you go about getting footage for those scenes where you're having the carnival, because that's a major scene to shoot, just in any situation. So how did you sort of go about dealing with that, as an independent filmmaker?
Yeah, it was quite challenging, especially because I deliberately decided not to set the story during Carnival. We use the Carnival scenes. They were filmed separately. They were filmed obviously during the Carnival, and being in the middle of battle with a camera, a very pricey camera, is not a great idea. So luckily, there is an organization of Carnival, of course, in my hometown. And that's the first chat I had was with these people, because of course I had to ask for permissions, and they were very cooperative, not in terms of money, unfortunately. I was hoping that they could also help me economically, but they didn't, which is quite bizarre because I'm taking their carnival around the world. But anyway, at least they were very super helpful with logistics. And so they gave me privileged positions where I could shoot in safety. We always put nets around the buildings that are facing the squares where the battle goes on. And so, but of course, unless you are on that one specific balcony, then it becomes impossible to shoot. And so they spoke to the owners of these balconies, and then they were all families from my city, but I didn't know them. And then they opened doors to us. It was really a familiar kind of situation in the end, because we were shooting, we were passing by the living room of these people with all our equipment, and that was quite interesting. But of course, the crew during those days was reduced because we didn't have actors, and so it was just the sound person, the cameraman, and the director of photography, and myself. So it was very reduced. But on set, we were also up to 30 people. And in terms of permission, I use locations that are very familiar to me because it's the area where I was brought up. And even the private spaces were run by people that I either knew or that I went to meet before shooting, and they were all so open. Again, I was very honest and just telling them why I wanted to make this project while I was working on it. And I found open doors, I would say, most of the times. And it was the same collecting money. I would tell them what my purpose with this job was, and everyone that decided to be part of it contributed in one way or the other, be it by giving catering for free, or they even gave me gas vouchers, because of course there was quite a lot of moving around involved, and gas would have been an expense, but we didn't have it because we had these vouchers. So even if they couldn't get money, they helped in other ways. And then in Italian, we have a special saying that goes like, always try to have a copper kind of face. It means don't be ashamed to ask. So because I like wine, I had some wine tasting with the Association of Italian Sommelier. And I said, wow, my region is all about wine. Maybe they could get sponsor. They can sponsor my film. I founded the contact of the director of this association online, of the director of the association in my region, and I called him and said, hey, why don't we I of course introduced myself, the project, and then I said, I have a proposal for you. Why don't you organize a wine tasting evening where we put a ticket, a price for it, for access. We taste wines from the area, and I take the chance to present my project that's also really rooted on the territory. And then you give the money to me so I can make the movie. And I said this last part very quickly because I was a little bit ashamed. Someone randomly calling you who's never met you. I mean, I could really have been anyone. There was a moment of silence, and I was, oh man, now he's either going to hang up or to tell me it's a great idea. And it was the second one. So those were
there you go.
my most important sponsors. So again, and we raised really a good amount of money just on that one evening, and that was very nice. It was a donation from the side, and I was really like, wow. So try just what people.
There you go. You know, that's you got to be innovative in how you raise your money as well. That's that is quite a bit of advice for new filmmakers. Just you got to plug at it and think of ways to make to raise your money.
Yeah, and maybe after 10, because of course I'm telling the successful stories. There were a lot of slammed doors, but I think it's part of the process. There cannot be open doors if there are no closed ones. So
that's true. I mean, you just have to be persistent about what you want to create.
Sooner or later, some door will open, hopefully.
Yes. Well, yes, hopefully. But that doesn't mean that we don't keep trying, though.
Yeah, no, exactly. Otherwise, there's no point. If you truly believe in your idea, which doesn't mean thinking that you have the best idea of the world. It's just an idea that's good for you and that you feel compelled to share with other people. That drive you.
Exactly. So, Laura, before we wrap this this exciting discussion, I'd like to ask you, like, have as a jury member, have you come across any filmmakers that you've now seen have become these successes, or do you wish there were some that would have gone on to something, but for whatever reason they just haven't been discovered, I guess.
As a jury member, I tend to keep following the films that I discover when I'm on juries, and I like to see the journey. I must admit that sometimes filmmakers that I thought were really, really valuable haven't made other films after that specific one. But in most cases, it was just the first or maybe the second of what then became a long journey. And that's always nice to discover. I like to, a lot of times when I'm on a jury also, I happen to give prizes to people that were very young. I don't know, probably it's just very young, meaning professionally. So first films or second films. And so a lot of them are still in the process of getting their names out there. There is, but I was not on the jury, but there is an Indian filmmaker that I worked with in, for example, in Venice, that, wow, his story was so impressive. He's an engineer. He's always worked as an engineer. And then he came up with an idea and he decided to make his first film. And it was a long feature film. And it was such a team work. It was incredible. And I'm not saying that he did it just as a secondary activity, because he put a lot of effort into it. But he basically just put his own passion into that. And well, he made it to Venice. It premiered in Venice in the Orizzonti section, which is the Horizon section, the one that shows new emerging talents. And he won that section. And I had the pleasure I had the pleasure of working with him there. And we're still in touch now because I then watched this film, not during the festival, because I never have time to watch films during festivals, of course, but later on, and I loved it. And now he's just finished his second one, and of course he gave up his engineering career. And I love this because it means that when you really feel something and you have that drive, no matter what. I mean, he was already, I think he was past his 30s already when he started. So it's never too late. And he believed in what he was doing, and he made it to Venice. So it's a beautiful story, very motivating, I think, to people who are just starting this career. And I can't wait to watch his second one. He's just finished it. He's waiting to release it in a moment where he could be present and talk to an audience. So let's see what he comes up with, but I'm sure it will be a great job. But then
definitely it's definitely an inspiring story.
Yeah, it was amazing. And then in terms of people who then became famous, but I was not on the jury then either, because it was again at the Venice Film Festival. I had the pleasure of working with Anurag Kashyap when it was still, it was 10 years ago. So it was already doing well, but he was not the person who's become then. And worked with him twice in Venice. And I remember that he was again one of the guests to look after when I was in Doha. And in Doha, in Qatar, my whole team was, there were a lot of Indians on the team. And when he arrived, we just hugged each other and we spoke, and all my Indian colleagues were like this. And then when I went back to the office, they were, you know Anurag? And I was, well, yeah, twice in Venice. And they were, oh, can you ask him for an autograph? And no, this is not professional. It's the first thing that I can't do. Ask for pictures or an autograph, but please, it's for us. So, yeah, he was a very nice discovery and a super lovely person also.
It's yeah, it's interesting that you're talking about these people who sort of go on to bigger things, and they obviously become part of what is now like a cultural landscape. Especially with Anurag Kashyap, where I mean, he is big in India, but even in Pakistan, you have diehard fans. Just from his earlier films as well. So
Yeah, the other
again, because you sorry, go ahead.
sorry, I forgot to say that the title of the other film I was mentioning was Court by Chaitanya Tamaya. I know I'm mispronouncing. It's very hard for me, but yeah.
I have heard of that movie as well. I haven't had the pleasure of watching it, but that
I highly recommend it.
you
Very
know,
beautiful.
yeah, it's again, because you were talking about distribution with the Indian director who made Court. What what lies ahead for you, like in terms of your film distributing it, and what are the other projects that you're sort of embarking upon, or eventually will in the future?
Yeah. Well, I wouldn't mind making a second film because the first one was such a beautiful journey. I would like to switch to a long feature film, but I know that if for this one so much effort was needed for a long feature film, it will be 10 times as much, if not more. And because it was so emotionally draining, meaning I put so much of myself into what I was doing, I think I'm not prepared yet because I haven't recovered from last year yet. So it's an idea. I'm starting to playing around with these different ideas I have, and let's see how that goes. I would like my film event to become a little bigger. It's been the third edition now. I mean, it was supposed to be in May. It's going to be in September. I have 10 films, 5 shorts and 5 long feature. And yeah, I'd like it to grow a little bit more. I started making bridges with other similar events for now in Italy. So maybe it would be nice to build some bridges with similar events abroad. It would be great to find sponsors because otherwise I cannot have guests coming over. So that's another idea. And I hope I can bring my film to more festivals because it's the best part of it. And just meeting new people. And but yeah, first of all, we have to start being able to travel as we used to, and then from
Yeah.
there, the possibilities will be out there. So I'm in an in between moment phase, I would say, and I think in a way this year I needed a little break because last year was so eventful. I didn't mean, of course, such a break, but anyway, if something was good, if we have to find something positive personally about this period, was at least that I could slow down a little bit and put my thoughts back into shape. And I wouldn't mind leaving for some nice work adventure in some other country. So adding maybe some new festivals because that is always so inspiring. Because you get to live in a place for a while and you really get close to the locals and to new cultures. So a lot of things out there on the plate, and then as always, and then you see where what to focus on exactly, depending on how things will unfold.
Well, I certainly hope you make that second film, and
Thank you.
I'm interested to see what you talk about in that film, and good luck to you with that. I know it's always a task, but yeah, can't wait for that one. I Yeah.
Thank you very much.
Thank you for coming on board and talking to us and taking so much of your precious time out to talk to other independent filmmakers. Um, I feel it's really important, to be inspired by this, because we might all have different journeys, but the journey in general is pretty much the same. We all go through the same difficulties as filmmakers. So to listen to other filmmakers and to be able to share that struggle and to share that path is something that inspires everyone. To throw their first orange.
Absolutely, absolutely. No, thank you for inviting me, for having me on board, for this great chat. And I think that what you do is really important for us filmmakers, because just being brave to launch a festival on such a year and focusing on independent filmmaker is always a challenge. So I really wish you all the best for this new journey that you've embarked upon, and I'm sure it will be full of successes, because the first steps, I can tell already from the first steps that you're right on track. It's such a pleasure to be part of this, and congratulations for being so professional. It's really so professional. It's the first thing I notice when I'm dealing with a new festival, and your whole team was professional from the very beginning. So congratulations for that. It's not to be taken for granted, and it doesn't happen that often. So keep up with the good.
Thank you. You're too kind. Appreciate it. So
luck for this.
Anyway, thank you once again, and hopefully, when we're able to fly and everything is back to normal, we can actually meet up in person. That is, it's always good to meet filmmakers and form that community. So till then, thank you, Laura. Till then, and good luck with everything.
Thank you.
Bye-bye.
Very much. Bye-bye. Bye.
So, people, that was Laura, and she was basically talking to us about her journey and how she's gone from studying languages and literature to actually making a film and everything in between. And it was great to hear her journey, and for all the independent filmmakers out there, be persistent, think big, and always keep trying. Just no matter what, you might not be in the biggest film festivals, you might not be seen everywhere, but that doesn't mean your work is not important and that you don't have anything important to say. So keep trying, keep plugging, and keep telling your stories. Thank you for joining us, and we will see you for the next broadcast with a different filmmaker or someone who's related to film, and we're gonna keep on inspiring. We're gonna keep on inspiring you guys to tell your stories. Thank you. Bye bye.